Asif. This has been a lucky chance ride for Philip. At least it was a lucky chance ride. Latest price 10 to 1, you see. When Awasif ran the other day at Lingfield, that was her second race of the season. Philip rode her, and she won really well round the Lingfield mile and a quarter. I don't think there's any danger of her not getting the trip because she's by the Derby winner Snow Knight. Really well bred, a half-sister to a filly who finished second in the 1,000 guineas. But in her previous race, I'm bound to admit, she finished behind Time Charter, quite a long way behind Time Charter, in fact, so that there is that gap to be made up. I'm full of hope, though, that Awasif has improved sufficiently to make it up. She's sure to act on the course, sure to stay, and I hope, sure to run well. Number 2, Awasif and Philip Waldron. And there is Last Feather. Well, it'd be no surprise if this filly starts favourite. Steve Cawthon was talking about her early on. She's 5 to 2 from 9 to 2. She is possibly one of the best bred fillies in the world, by Vaguely Noble out of Quill. And Quill was 24 years old, can you believe it, when she foaled this filly. In fact, I'm not quite sure she will be the Last Feather, because Quill is believed to be getting in foal again, even now when she must be 26. Well, Last Feather, we saw her winning the Musadora at York. She had to make the running that day. Steve Cawthon didn't really want to make the running, but she had to, and she did it really well. When she needed to quicken, she did so, and they simply didn't see the way she went. Slightly Sing Softly, Henry Cecil's Oaks filly then, in those days, was well beaten. So were the others, and Last Feather is likely to have improved. A perfectly justifiable favourite, number 8, Last Feather. And there's Zinzara, the Mount of Pat Edery. Well, Pat, 4 to 1 from 4 to 1 joint favourite Zinzara now. Well, Pat refused the ride on the house in the 1,000 guineas in these same colours, but he has willingly accepted the ride on Zinzara, and no wonder, because although he rode Zinzara, 4 to 1 joint favourite she is now. Although he rode Zinzara when she was beaten by Slightly Dangerous at Newbury, he rode her again at Newbury, and that time she positively hacked up. She beat Dreaming Away very comfortably, and it's that line that makes me hope that Awasif may beat her, because Awasif also beat Dreaming Away with even more in hand, or a little more in hand perhaps, than Zinzara had at Newbury. It's that line of calculation that's made me go for Awasif, but I must say I wouldn't hang too much weight on it. This is a very good filly by Stage Door Johnny out of a mare by Olden Times. She's got a real turn of foot, but on the form book she has got something to find with Slightly Dangerous, who we'll see presently. That's Zinzara, and in front of her, let's go back to the French filly, and what a beautiful filly she is. I'd never seen All Along before she arrived in the paddock. She's the Mount of Yves Saint-Martin, and Yves, if he will forgive me, has got just a little bit to make up. She's 12 to 1 now, at any rate for those of us who back Persepolis each way, because I think he will agree that he did not give Persepolis one of his finest rides in the Derby. In fact, he got into just about all the trouble there was going. I don't say he'd have won, he certainly wouldn't have won, but he ought to have finished second, I think. Well, All Along's only been beaten once in her life. It was last time out, and in very, very soft ground. She's known to like this much firmer ground, and on it, in France, she's never been beaten. Admittedly, her first race was at Amiens, which isn't absolutely the poshest French racecourse, but since then she's won 2 good races this season, is in real good form, looks marvellous, and if it was the mud that beat her when she was behind Harbour in the Prix Saint-Valery, well then she's got a great chance of letting Yves Saint-Martin redeem his reputation. His reputation, of course, doesn't need redeeming. He's won every English classic in the book, including the Oaks twice. Number 1, All Along, the Mount of Yves Saint-Martin. And there's Dickie Davis's choice, Debonair, who in fact, I don't quite know why, has slightly got out of the parade. I don't know why Debonair briefly took charge. She's 100 to 1, perhaps that was what annoyed her. Well, as I told you, last time out at Goodwood she fell, and her form really isn't all that much. She's a maiden, and maidens don't very often win the Oaks. In fact, she was 9 lengths behind Tamps in the Ethel bookmaker's trial at Lingfield, over the Lingfield course, which resembles this one. So I'm afraid, even with Dickie's money on her, she's very much an outsider. Number 6, Debonair. And there's Leicester on Tance. And well, this is probably 4-1 joint favourite now. Heavens, a lot of joint favourites. Well, this is probably the best filly so far produced by the French colt Vitige, but she's beautifully bred on her dam side by Hans, who was out of Exbury, the same family as Meld, and she carries the same colours that Meld carried, and also the same colours that the immortal Brown Jack used to carry when he won those 7 races at Royal Ascot. Well, Tance won the Lingfield trial and won it really well. Admittedly, it looked to me as though Lester Piggott stole a bit of a march on the other jockeys. He shot her clear coming in the straight, and Rockfest and the others never got to her, but Leicester's apt to do that at any time. And as well, I think she's got a real good chance. Number 11, Tance, and I think there's a change in the betting.
St. Tance and Zinzara, the 4-1 joint favourites. Last Feather 5-1 from 9-2. Slightly Dangerous, steady in the market at 8-1. Cut Loose is 9-1 from 8s, and Awasif has gone to 11-1 from 10s. Dione steady at 12s. All Along and Time Charter also at 12-1. Swiftfoot is 14-1 from 12s, and Cadihar has gone to 40-1 from 33s. Devonair 100-1, and Brummondale 500-1. All 13 show.
And as they cantered down, that was Time Charter, the last filly we saw, and there she is again, cantering down into the paddock. Well, this filly is by Sarah Tamer, who was a sprinter, so you might have some doubt about her getting the trip until you look at her dam. And then you find that her dam, Centracon, is sister to no lesser stayers than Nicholas Bill and Centraline, both of them by, all 3 of them in fact, by High Line, and all 3 tremendous stayers. Time Charter is 12-1, and I think myself that that's a real good each-way price. I think she's got a tremendous chance. She ran really well in the 1,000 guineas, second to On the House, and in front of Dione, just in front of Dione. If, as I believe, Time Charter gets this trip today, she must have a wonderful chance. She's the first mount in the Oaks of Billy Nunes, and she was in fact his first classic mount in the 1,000 guineas when she ran so well. But Billy's been riding really well this season, and he'll be no handicap. Number 12, Time Charter. On her left there is Slightly Dangerous, and this is a fascinating filly because she's only got 1 blot on her record. She won really well last year. She's quite superbly bred, Slightly Dangerous, by Roberto, out of the daughter of Noblesse. Noblesse, probably the easiest Oaks winner most living people have ever seen. And her daughter, Where You Lead, was ridden into 2nd place in the Oaks by Lester Piggott. But Slightly Dangerous has got 1 blot on her record. There she is in the middle of your picture now. That was the 1,000 guineas. She started second favourite for it, and ran inexplicably badly. She couldn't go the pace early on, and just managed to run on at 1 pace to finish 5th, some way behind both Time Charter and Dione. Afterwards, however, she was found to have a slight temperature, and if you forget that run, well, who knows? Paul Cook could strike lucky, because the stable jockey Steve Cawthon has chosen Last Feather in preference to Slightly Dangerous, and Paul Cook is on this one, and I think she's got a real good chance. She's certainly bred to win it. That's Slightly Dangerous. Behind her, Time Charter. Now the long walk down, there's Awasif. There's Brummondale, I beg your pardon, it's heavens, I ought to know those colours. They are, of course, Sir John Jakey Astor's colours on Cut Loose, and this is the one I would most like to see win, really. She's a full sister to last year's St. Leger winner, Cut Above, and her dam, Cuttle, who was the daughter of Cutter, who Sir John Astor swapped with Mr. Dick Hollingsworth for a mare of his, and it's been a marvellously profitable swap, because Cuttle has produced 2 classic winners already, and quite possibly Cut Loose will be the 3rd. Because when she ran at York the other day, she got into terrible trouble. Willie kept getting stopped to get his run, and finally Cut Loose suddenly saw some daylight and really quickened away to beat Merck and Honey and Vadrouille very easily indeed. She looks superb. She looks to have done really well. She would prefer a bit more cut in the ground, but I'm full of hope that she will give at any rate, a great run to the colours of Sir John Astor. Number 5, Cut Loose. There's number 10, Swiftfoot, the other of Dick Hearn's 2 runners. Willie Carson has chosen to ride Cut Loose. probably because Swiftfoot, on whom he won the Cheshire Oaks, had a slight tummy upset. You see she's 14-1 now. She had a slight tummy upset last week and missed just a couple of days' work. But both Dick Hearn and everybody else are convinced that she's back in form now. And from the way she won the Cheshire Oaks, won it really well, getting the trip, getting every yard of the trip. She's by run the gantlet out of the mare by Rolko, so she's sure to stay the distance. She's got a real chance of proving Willie wrong and giving Greville Starkey another Oaks winner. Number 10, Swiftfoot. And now we ought to hear some news of what's happening down in the betting ring, so let's join the magical John McCreary to find out.
This is the most open Oaks since 1972, when Arcadina and Lady Jones started 6-1 joint favourites and finished 3rd and 4th behind Ginevra. Of course, with plenty of horses being backed, a wide open race, bookmakers relish betting on this kind of event. And there's quite a dispute as to who's to be favourite. Tance at one time was a 5-1 chance. She came quickly in 9-2, 4-1, and Zinzara has remained absolutely solid also at 4-1. Very hard to differentiate between those two. Now, Barry Hills's fillies have both drifted in the market. Barry himself has said that they both need more rain. They certainly haven't got it here, and the punters seem to be remembering that. I've seen Slightly Dangerous out at 8, 9 and even 10-1 in places, and Last Feather, one bookmaker went 11-2 Last Feather, and that was quickly taken. For Dickie Davis's tip, that's Debonair, 100-1. One punter told me he was very convinced that was a good each-way bet, and John Oakes's horse Aswasif, that was also backed early from 12-1 down to 9-1. It's now back out to 11-1. So the dispute in the ring as to who is going to start favourite, Tance or Zinzara. Back to you, John Oakesley.
Apparently Tance went very freely down to the start, but that's Dione, John Dunlop's second string. Well, I don't know whether it's his second string or his first string. Time will tell, because Dione ran a blinder in the 1,000 guineas. She's beautifully bred by Mill Reef out of a Roan Rocket mare. That makes her full sister to the good stayer, Bow Reef. She's not nearly as big as him. She's 12-1 now in the betting. But she, too, is certain to get the trip. And a very game, tough filly who ran really well to be third in the 1,000 guineas. Number 7, the Mount of Joe Mercer, who won the Oaks for the first time 29 years ago. So good luck to Joe on number 7, Dione. And there's Cuddy Ha, who was behind Last Feather in the Musidora, but only a length and a half, length and 3/4 behind her. She's 40-1 now. I should have thought if you wanted an outsider, Cuddy Ha, the Mount of Jeff Baxter, would be a possibility. That's Cuddy Ha then. We haven't seen Brummondell, who's the total outsider, running because her owner wants her to run, but I don't think we need worry too much. She's the only grey in the field. Well, there's a Wasi for my selection, and Bruff was talking to Philip Waldron earlier on and asked him how he rated a Wasi.
Yes, I think I can. She's a very nice filly, and she won at Lingfield last Saturday and won really in good style. She'd get the trip well, the tracker suit her, and I'm sure she'll be in the first race.
And who do you think is your biggest threat?
I think it's a very, very open Oaks this year, and I think there's got to be half a dozen there with a great chance, and so we just have to see.
Sorry, but not for the first time. Philip, whether he thought she could win on a Wasif again. But here is Greville Starkey, I beg your pardon, Pat Eddery on Zinzara. Well, as I've told you, Slightly Dangerous has beaten Zinzara, and Bruff asked Pat whether or why he thinks that Zinzara can turn the tables.
Well, she got beat first time this year in the Fred Darden, and I think my filly probably needed the race pretty bad that day. And, you know, she came back and she ran at Newbury again, and she won very easy.
And how hopeful are you of this big double?
Well, I've got a very good chance. She's a good filly. I'm sure she'll give me a very good ride.
What's your biggest danger?
Well, I like Willie Carson's man. I think that's a good filly.
Of Cut Loose, well, I do hope he's right, but let's have a look at the betting now.
Zinzara and Tan still the 4-1 joint favourites. Last Feather 11-2, Cut Loose 9-1, Slightly Dangerous at 10s, a Wasif 11-1, all along at 12s. Time Charter also 12-1, Dione 14s, Swiftfoot 16-1, Caddy Har is 40s, Debonair 66-1, and Brummondell 500-1. They all show.
Well, there's Lester Piggott, who's already won the Oaks five times. Ruff Scott said to him, you've won on Tants already, can you do it again?
Well, I must have a good chance, you know. She's won over the distance, and she won at Lingfield, you know, which is something like this track, you know, and the ground was pretty fast that day, you know, so I should have a good chance, really. You know.
Well, they went a very fast gallop in the Derby. What sort of a gallop do you expect here?
I don't think they'll go all that fast today, you know, because there's no really front-running horses, you know.
What about your own tactics? How soon would you want to go with her?
Well, I don't know, really. It just depends what happens, you know, but you can ride her anyhow. This is quite easy, you know.
Which are the others are you most frightened of?
I think it's a very open race, really, you know. I think, you know, a Wasser and Last Feather, Cutler, they've all got a chance, you know. Yeah.
But it still could be the 6 Piggott Oaks.
Exactly.
Well, everybody seems to be agreed on one thing, and that is that it's a thoroughly open race. Here's Dione. I'd be delighted for her to win because, as you probably know, I'm a tremendous admirer of her sire, Mill Reef. Her full brother, Beau Reef, I'm very sorry to hear, has died in Australia. He was exported to Australia and has died there. But there she goes, Joe Mercer, who won this race such an incredibly long time ago, back in 1953, on Ambiguity, in the same colours as Cut Loose. And I don't think there are any of these fillies known to be particularly difficult in getting into the stalls. I hope I'm not speaking too soon when I say that. That's Last Feather, and slightly dangerous in front of Last Feather, and or rather Awasif just in front of Last Feather. Slightly dangerous in the foreground, number 9. Time Charter, number 12 in the background. And there's Awasif, going to be offered up to the stalls. Tants is now a 4-to-1 favourite. Well, the best of luck to them. A fascinating Oaks. Over to you, Graham Good.
13 runners, slightly dangerous just going in, under Paul Cook, second in the Derby. This is Inzara, Pedigree, the black colours, Awasif on the far side. Runners going into the stall steadily. Time Charter, and Debonair still to go in. That's Debonair. Time Charter just going in. This is Billy Newns to his first classic ride. Debonair, Last Feather, Steve Cawthon going in. That looks to be about the last one. All the others now installed for this, the Oaks. 1.5 miles, Major Fillies Classic. Stalls handler comes out. Thumbs go up, you hear they're all in, they're under orders and they're off. And as they begin to settle down up on the outside, Time Charter showing very good speed in Debonair, and now it's Debonair going on. From Brummondale in second place. Debonair and Brummondale, the two outsiders, lead the Oaks in the early stages. From Dione and Last Feather, and then comes Swiftfoot, and behind Swiftfoot, Time Charter. Then the French Challenger all along, and behind that one on the near side is Caddy Ha. They continue their stiff uphill climb, and it's Brummondale now going on, ridden by David Dione. He's first ever ride in a classic, this one, this grey. Brummondale the leader. From, in second place, Time Charter. Debonair, I should say, second. Then up on the outside, Swiftfoot is third. These are then followed by Dione up on the inside and Last Feather. Then comes Caddy Ha on the inner. But it's Brummondale in the lead from Last Feather on the outside of Debonair. Then comes Dione in fourth and Last Feather and Caddy Ha on the inside. Lester Piggott on Tants making up ground on the outer that is, of Time Charter. Then comes Slightly Dangerous. Towards the rear of this field is Panadery on Zinzara. The field very closely grouped indeed at the top of the hill, where Brummondale now surrendering the lead to up on the outside. Up on the outside it's Cut Loose, and also up there is Swiftfoot. So they begin the descent into Tattenham Corner, and as they do so, the grey Brummondale now being passed on the outside by Swiftfoot, then Dione making up ground, and then Debonair. Then comes Last Feather, Lester Piggott on the very wide outside on Tants. Behind him is Awasif, and as they begin the journey into the home straight, begin the descent to Tattenham Corner, and it's Swiftfoot in the lead, from Debonair in second place. Then comes Last Feather, then just in behind these Slightly Dangerous. Lester getting ever closer up on the outside. The French Challenger is last but one. Last of all is the early leader, Brummondale, and they begin the turn into the home straight with Swiftfoot on the rails in the lead, then Caddy Hard up on the outside last feather, Devonair in behind these, then comes Dione, slightly dangerous, Willie Carson looking for ground, Time Charter comes under pressure, the pace really quickening there, they've got just over 2.5 furlongs to go, and it's last feather in the lead, last feather the leader, from Caddy Hard in second, then comes Slightly Dangerous and Time Charter staying on, Lester Piggott's on the wide outside under pressure and seemingly held at this stage, a furlong and a half to go in the Oaks, and it's last feather being tackled by stable companion Slightly Dangerous in last feather, but Time Charter under Billy News is coming with a strong run down the centre of the track. Zinzara is finishing fast behind his Awasif, and inside the final furlong, Time Charter, the first classic victory inside for Billy News at the line. Time Charter, the winner, Slightly Dangerous is second, then came in third place last feather behind him Awasif, then Zinzara and all along, then Cut Above from Caddy Har, then Tance a disappointing run, then Dione and Devonair, and the back markers include Brummondale, and last of all was Swiftfoot. And so the result of this, the Oaks, is a win for number 12, Time Charter, owned by Mr. R. Barnett, trained and wanted by Henry Candy, bred by her owner and ridden by Willie Nunes. Number 20 of the season for him, and by far his most important win. Second was number 9, Slightly Dangerous, ridden by Paul Cook. And third was number 8, Last Feather, ridden by Steve Cawthon. Well, that's the 1, 2, 3 in this, the Oaks Stakes. And in fact, getting a congratulatory note there by Paul Cook, who finished second on Slightly Dangerous. But there's our winner, Time Charter. Billy Nunes, his most important success. Paul Cook second again on his second classic within a week. I'm sure he must be wondering what to do. Confirmation that the third horse home was number 8, Last Feather. That's the 1, 2, 3. Here's our winner, marvellously ridden by Billy Nunes, as we can see again with John Oaksey.
Yes, what a triumph for this young jockey. But at this stage, I thought it was America, because Steve Cawthon had Last Feather in front of Caddy Har, with Slightly Dangerous in behind. Slightly Dangerous in third place. Last Feather, Caddy Har and Slightly Dangerous, but here comes Billy Nunes. He's fourth at that stage on Time Charter, and from there on he keeps making ground. Last Feather's run a fine race. Slightly Dangerous, though, her stable companion, is coming up to challenge her now. This must have been a gloomy sight for Steve Cawthon, who'd chosen to ride Last Feather, because here comes Slightly Dangerous with the white face. 3, 4 off the rails, and on the outside, Time Charter gaining steadily. Last Feather, Slightly Dangerous, and Time Charter on the left. Zinzara can't make any headway with the white noseband, and on the extreme left of your picture you see Awasif making up a lot of ground, but from too far behind. Now Billy Nunes' challenge has succeeded. He's got Time Charter's nose in front. On she strides, getting every yard of the trip, beating Slightly Dangerous fair and square, with Slightly Dangerous's stable companion Last Feather in third place, Awasif fourth, Zinzara fifth, by the look of it from here. Well, we won't bother to look at the head-on because there was nobody deviated from a straight line, and what a wonderful triumph. In his second ride in the Classic, Billy Nunes, they've both been on Time Charter. The first was when she was second in the 1,000 guineas, and now, despite the fact that she's by a sprinter, the marvellous stamina of her female line, the one that produced Centracon, Nicholas Bill and Centraline, has landed Time Charter home. And how sad it is that Mr. Barnett, who originated this wonderful family, died 2 years ago, and it's his own family who are now going to be welcoming Time Charter into the winner's enclosure. Well, Graham, a fine race.
A fine race and a very fine piece of race riding indeed by Billy Nunes. Let's savour these moments as he comes into his first classic. Time Charter was the 12-1 winner of the second classic for fillies. She won by length, with a length and a half between the second and third, and there she is, getting a well-deserved pat. There's the winner. Starting prices now from John Tyrrell.
First number 12, Time Charter, returned at 12-1. Second number 9, Slightly Dangerous, 10-1. And third number 8, Last Feather, 11-2. Chance was the